The quieter you become, the more they start to hear their own noise. You want the truth? Most people don't know how to handle silence. Not real silence, the kind that doesn't come from pride or games, but from peace. From finally realizing that your worth isn't measured by how fast you text back or how hard you chase someone who keeps running. When you stop chasing them, their entire world gets quieter, but their mind, oh, it starts screaming. And in that silence, my friends, everything changes. Before we go deep into this, make sure you press the like button, subscribe if you're ready to master your mind, and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Hey folks, imagine this. You're standing in the middle of a storm. Rain is pouring, thunder is cracking, and everyone around you is panicking, scrambling for shelter, yelling, reacting. But you just pull your hood over your head, plant your feet, and stare straight into the chaos without flinching. That's what not chasing looks like. It's not that you're cold, it's that you've found something stronger than emotion, clarity. And when they look back and see you didn't move, they start to question everything. Let's break a lie that's been forced into your heart. If you don't chase them, you'll lose them. My friends, if you have to chase someone just to be seen, you never had them. That's not love. That's performance. That's emotional labor disguised as loyalty. And here's the cold truth. Some people only value you when your energy is desperate. They feed off your anxiety, your quick replies, your need for reassurance. But the moment you stop, the moment you say, no more, it's not silence anymore, it's a statement. You see, in a world that runs on noise, chasing has become the default. Everyone's talking over each other, typing faster, posting more. But silence? Silence is terrifying because it forces them to sit with themselves. And if they hurt you, ignored you, underestimated you, they're now stuck with the image of you not reacting, not texting, not performing, just being gone, not with a scream, but with a whisper. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That quote right there, it's the soul of this entire message. You're not here to control them. You're here to master yourself. You're not going to beg someone to see your worth when you've already shown it. Let your absence teach what your presence tried to give for free. And let's not forget, people don't miss you when you're always available. They miss you when you disappear with grace, when you stop proving and start preserving, when you walk out of their emotional casino, take your chips, and cash out without saying a word. That's when they feel the loss. Not when you cry, not when you explain, but when you stop showing up. So if you're listening to this right now and thinking, but what if they think I don't care? Let me stop you. You're not here to manage someone's assumptions. You're here to protect your peace. Your stillness is not a lack of love. It's the presence of self-respect. Now, I want you to write this in the comments right now. I choose peace over chasing. Say it. Own it. And remind yourself every time you feel the urge to beg for crumbs when you were always the whole damn meal. Stay with me because we're just getting started, and what happens in their mind when you don't chase them is something they'll never forget. Wait, they didn't chase? Sometimes silence is not the absence of love, it's the presence of self-worth. Let's be honest, most people don't know what to do when you don't react, especially when they expected you to. That moment when they pull back, say something vague, maybe even give you a cold shoulder, and instead of responding with panic, apology, or pursuit, you do nothing. That's the moment their script starts falling apart, because they were so sure of your reaction. They thought they had it all mapped out. You'd chase, you'd explain, you'd try to fix it. But now, you're just still. And that stillness? It's louder than anything you could have said. Imagine a stage play. Everyone's acting, repeating the same roles over and over again. And then, mid-scene, one actor just stops. No exit line, no explanation, just walks off the stage and doesn't return, what happens to the rest of the play? It crumbles. That's what you did. You didn't abandon the story, you ended the performance. Not to be cruel, but because you finally realized it wasn't worth the ticket. The moment you don't chase, questions start unraveling in their mind. Wait, did I go too far? Did they stop caring? Were they not that invested? These thoughts aren't logical. They're emotional panic signals, because silence from someone who once cared deeply doesn't feel neutral. It feels haunting. It's the ghost of everything they took for granted now staring them in the face. But let's flip this around. Why do they expect you to chase in the first place? Why do they think silence from you is temporary, not powerful? Because society feeds us the lie that if you really care, you fight, you chase, you beg, especially if you're the one who cared more. They expect effort, proof, emotional labor. But here's the twist. They confuse effort with self-sacrifice. They think love means losing yourself to keep someone else comfortable. They think silence is weakness. But a Stoic knows the truth. A Stoic knows that silence isn't retreat. It's command. It's not fear. It's focus. It's what happens when you finally value your peace over their confusion. Now, I know what you're thinking. But won't they think I stopped caring? Won't they forget me? What if they move on? Those fears. They come from the part of you that's still healing. The part that was taught that your value is in how much you give, not how deeply you live. But let me remind you, your silence isn't rejection. It's revelation. It reveals the truth they never expected to see, that you don't need to chase to be valuable, that your love wasn't desperation, it was discipline. It's hard, I know. Every part of you wants to break the silence, to prove that you're the better person, that you still care, that you were the one with integrity. But integrity doesn't need a megaphone. It speaks in the way you refuse to betray your own peace just to be understood. You'll be tempted to break, to reach out, to say, hey, just checking in. But pause. Ask yourself, why? Are you doing it to reconnect or to rescue your ego from the uncertainty of not knowing how they feel? Because most people don't chase love. They chase closure, they chase control, and that's the trap you're finally escaping. Let me show you something deeper. When you didn't chase, you didn't just remove your presence. You removed the certainty they had about you. That certainty was their power. They could pull away and you'd pull harder. They could go cold and you'd turn warmer. It gave them emotional leverage. But the moment you stood still, you flipped the dynamic. Not by playing games, but by playing no game at all. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." You knew it wasn't right to keep overextending for someone who couldn't meet you halfway. You knew it wasn't true love if it made you chase shadows and silence. So you stopped. And now they're stuck with a version of you they didn't expect. One that no longer seeks, one that no longer explains, one that no longer performs. And this is where real power lives. Because the person who can sit with their silence and not flinch is rare. The person who can walk away, not in rage, but in resolve, is unforgettable. Not because they made a scene, but because they ended the cycle, gracefully, with no mess, no drama, no one last message. So let me ask you this. What are you showing the world right now? That you're chasing approval or that you've stepped into your worth? What are you showing yourself? That you're addicted to answers or that you're becoming the kind of person who doesn't need them to feel whole? Because when you don't chase, something magical happens. You rise, and while they sit in their confusion, scrolling through old messages, checking your profile, replaying your last conversation, you're building, you're sharpening, you're healing, you're becoming. So let them wonder, why didn't they chase? Let them drown in the silence they created. Because you, my friend, are not here to convince anyone. You are here to become undeniable. Now type this in the comments right now. I choose silence with power. Say it out loud. Let it hit your chest. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world. Not through words, but through your walk. And stay with me, because what happens next in their mind, the way that silence grows into obsession, the way that absence turns into clarity, you won't want to miss it. This is just the beginning. Did I just get replaced that fast? Most people don't fear being forgotten. They fear being replaced before they even realize they were lost. Unknown. Let's get real for a second. The moment you stop chasing them, the first thing their mind runs to isn't reflection. It's replacement. Not, why did they stop? But, who are they with now? Because here's the uncomfortable truth most people won't say out loud. They weren't worried about you being gone. They were worried about someone else having your attention. Jealousy doesn't need facts. It just needs silence. And your silence? It's making more noise in their mind than your presence ever did. Because you used to be so consistent, so available, so present. The check-ins, the good mornings, the way you remembered their favorite songs, their silly habits, their moods before they even said a word. That version of you was steady, warm, real. But now that version is gone, and in its place is space, stillness. And worst of all, for them, the unknown. Imagine a candle that used to be lit every night, burning even when no one was watching. And then, one night, it's not. Just darkness. No flicker, no warmth. Just the question, did someone else blow it out? Or did they just stop lighting it? That's what they feel now. That ache, that curiosity, that suspicion wrapped in silence. And the longer you remain still, the louder their insecurity becomes. But here's the twist, my friends. You didn't get replaced. You evolved. You didn't pull away because someone new caught your attention. You pulled away because they didn't value it. They confused access with effort. They thought your loyalty was permanent, no matter how temporary their energy became. And now that you've stopped showing up, they're left trying to decode the silence they never thought you had in you. Let's break another lie they believed. They thought they were special because you chased, because you proved, because you cared. But they never stopped to ask, what happens when that kind of man stops caring? What happens when the person who used to overextend finally chooses to retract? You see, most people are addicted to being pursued, not because they want you, but because it feeds their ego. It validates their illusion of control. And when you stop chasing, you don't just remove your affection, you remove their emotional crutch. That's why the idea of you being with someone else hits them so hard, because now they're not just losing attention, they're losing the fantasy of being irreplaceable. But let's bring this back to you. I know what might be running through your mind. Should I reach out just to clarify? What if they think I moved on too fast? Stop. Don't explain your silence to people who never respected your presence. You owe no apology for growing. You owe no closure to someone who never gave you clarity. You didn't get replaced. You got real. And when real people walk away, fake energy starts to panic. Let me give you a truth you can tattoo on your heart. The right ones don't fear being replaced. They value being chosen. So if they're spiraling right now, wondering who you're texting, who you're laughing with, who you're building with, it's because they're finally experiencing what it feels like to be on the other side of inconsistency. The difference? You're not doing it to hurt them. You're doing it to heal yourself. And here's where the Stoicism kicks in hard. You're not using silence to manipulate. You're not dating someone new to spark jealousy. You're not even proving a point. You're just finally walking in alignment. You're living like a man or woman who understands that your time, energy, and love are investments, not giveaways. You're not punishing them. You're protecting you. Seneca said, associate with people who are likely to improve you. That doesn't just apply to mentors or wise friends. It applies to who you give your heart to. If someone's energy makes you doubt yourself, drain yourself, or chase just to be noticed, that's not love. That's survival mode. And survival isn't your standard anymore. Excellence is. So if they're sitting there thinking, did I just get replaced that fast? Let them feel that. Let them stew in their assumptions. You don't have to correct the record. You don't have to explain your piece. The version of you that used to break your own heart trying to be understood is gone. And what remains is someone who finally understands that just because someone had access to you once doesn't mean they get to keep it. Now write this in the comments right now. I'm not a backup plan, I'm the upgrade. Say it, feel it, let it rise in your chest. Show them, show yourself. Show the world around you that when you stop chasing, you don't fall behind, you move ahead. And stay with me, because the next thing that hits their mind is deeper than fear. It's doubt, not about you, but about themselves. And that's when the shift really begins. Were they ever even interested? It's wild how quickly someone's certainty turns to confusion the moment you stop proving your worth. This is where it gets interesting. When you stop chasing them, not with drama, not with anger, but with quiet dignity, they start questioning the very thing they once felt so sure about. The connection, the chemistry, the energy between you. Now suddenly, it's not so clear anymore. And not because it wasn't real, but because your stillness reveals what their ego refused to see. You used to show up, fully, consistently, with real intention. You made the effort. You remembered the little things. You were present, not to impress, but because that's who you are. You showed interest, not as a tactic, but as truth. But somewhere along the way, they stopped matching that. Cold replies, delayed texts, half energy wrapped in pretty words, and still, for a while, you stayed. You waited. You gave them the benefit of the doubt. But now you've gone quiet, not to punish, but to protect your peace. And your absence? It's making them see what they refused to admit when you were around. Maybe they misread you. Maybe they never understood your presence. Now, they're sitting there, scrolling through old messages, replaying your voice notes, zooming in on the details, looking for clues they missed. Were they just being polite? Was I just a placeholder? Did I imagine how strong that bond felt? No, they didn't imagine it. What they're feeling now isn't fiction, it's feedback. Their confusion isn't because the connection was fake, it's because your energy was real, and now it's gone. And this is the part they never expected. They assumed your interest came with guarantees that no matter how they pulled away, you'd pull harder, that if they gave less, you'd compensate. But Stoicism doesn't play by those rules. You're not here to chase ghosts. You're here to observe patterns. And when the pattern became one-sided, you didn't cry or collapse. You simply stepped back. And that silence, it now echoes with every message they didn't respond to. Every time they chose someone else's attention over your presence. Every time they played cool while you were being real. Let's be honest. Most people expect to be chased long after they stop contributing. It's not malice, it's conditioning. They believe being slightly interested should earn them full devotion. That minimal effort deserves maximum return. But that only works on those who haven't woken up yet, on those still addicted to approval. That's not you anymore. You're done explaining your intentions. You're done proving your sincerity. You're done auditioning for roles in someone else's life story. And that realization, it hits them like cold air when they step outside, expecting summer. Because they mistook your kindness for weakness, your interest for availability, your consistency for complacency. Here's the twist. The more still you become, the more movement there is in their mind. They start to question the very foundation of what you two had. Not because it wasn't solid, but because they're not used to someone who walks away without needing closure. You left no drama, no damage, just a door quietly closed. And that unsettles them, because when most people leave, they need attention while they go. They need to be noticed for walking away. But you left with nothing but your dignity, and that silence, it's haunting. Let me tell you something. They were interested. Deep down, they felt it. But interest without action is just emotional window shopping. It's wanting the benefits of connection without the responsibility of building it. And when you stopped showing up to be their emotional convenience store, they realized how empty their shelf actually was. This is where Stoicism becomes power. Marcus Aurelius said, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." You didn't walk away because you lost interest. You walked away because chasing someone who treats your sincerity like it's disposable is a betrayal of self-respect. You didn't stop caring. You just stopped over-giving. And now, while they're sitting in the space you used to fill, wondering if it ever meant anything to you, the answer is clear. It meant something. But it wasn't worth everything. Not if everything meant losing your peace, your pride, and your presence. You gave real energy to someone who couldn't hold it. That's not your failure. That's their mirror. So if they're asking themselves now, were they ever even interested? Let them ask. Let them spiral. Let them sit in that uncomfortable space between assumption and awareness. You don't need to answer the question. Your absence already has. Now write this in the comments right now. I no longer prove. I observe. Say it. Feel the weight of it. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that interest doesn't always mean chase, and silence doesn't always mean surrender. And stay with me. Because the next thought that invades their mind, why you're not reaching out, why you're not trying to fix it, shakes their illusion of control even deeper. The silence. It's just getting started. Why aren't they reaching out like everyone else? Not everyone wants closure. Some people want control, and when they don't get it, they call it your fault. This is where the panic really begins to creep in. At first, it was just confusion, maybe even ego denial. Oh, they're just giving me space. They'll come around. A few hours pass, a day, two. They check their phone, fully expecting your name to show up like it always did. That comforting ding, that dependable, "Hey, just thinking of you." But this time, nothing. And that's when it hits. You're not like the rest. You see, they've gotten used to a certain rhythm, a pattern. They pull away and someone chases. They go cold and someone warms it back up. They send a dry one-word reply and someone floods them with paragraphs. They've gotten used to being the emotional sun in someone's sky. And now, for the first time, the weather's changed and they don't know how to handle the chill. They're not asking, did I hurt them? They're asking, why haven't they cracked yet? Because they're so used to being chased, being reassured, being pursued back into comfort. But your silence, your calm, composed, consistent lack of engagement, it's unsettling. It doesn't feel like the silence of someone playing games. It feels like the silence of someone who's done, and that's far more terrifying. But let's talk about why they expected you to reach out in the first place. Because let's be honest, every other time you did. You reached out, you checked in, you apologized even when you didn't have to. You kept the connection warm even when they were acting cold. And for a while, that was your pattern. You weren't being weak, you were being real. But real doesn't mean bottomless. Real doesn't mean you keep bleeding love into someone who only offers you paper cuts. And so, when you didn't reach out this time, the old story in their mind broke. The story where you always come back. The story where you always fix things. Now they're left with a silence they don't know how to fill. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a stage play where one character always speaks after the other, like clockwork. One delivers a dramatic line and the other responds, over and over, scene after scene. But one day the second actor doesn't show up. No line, no reply, just emptiness. The audience waits, the lights dim, and that first character, left standing there, talking to themselves. That's what it feels like when you don't reach out, not to be cruel, but because the script no longer serves you. And you know what's really breaking them? It's not the absence of your message, it's the absence of your pattern. Because when you don't do what you used to do, it doesn't just make them miss you, it makes them question their control. And that's where the fear starts to snowball. They might start asking themselves, did I push them too far? Are they talking to someone else? Was I not important enough to fight for? But here's the real question they should be asking. Why did I expect them to do all the work in the first place? This isn't about you withdrawing affection. It's about you reclaiming your energy, reclaiming your dignity. You didn't disappear. You just stopped showing up in places where your presence was taken for granted. That's not punishment. That's protection. Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. And let me tell you, their response, their guilt, their realization, that's beyond your control. But what is in your control? Your reaction, your peace, your path. You didn't chase because you chose clarity over chaos. Stillness over seeking, self-respect over self-sacrifice. They're not used to that. They're not used to someone walking away and not needing to announce it. They're not used to someone who can hold their silence like a sword, not out of spite, but out of wisdom. And that's what makes your absence feel like a thunderclap. Not dramatic, just undeniable. They're probably stalking your socials right now, scrolling through stories, checking who you're following, wondering if your silence is personal. Spoiler, it is. It's personal because you've outgrown proving yourself to people who only listen when they feel the distance. And this is where it becomes powerful. Because the moment they realize you're not reaching out like everyone else, they don't think, wow, they're being cold. They think, damn, maybe they're really done. And that thought, it echoes, it lingers, it keeps them up at night. Not because you punished them, but because you didn't. Now, type this in the comments right now. I don't repeat patterns, I rise from them. Let it be your reminder, your signal, that you're not just staying silent, you're moving forward. Show them, show yourself, show the world. You're not like everyone else, and that's exactly why they'll remember you long after the messages stop. And stay with me, because the next thought in their spiral isn't about you anymore. It's about them, about what they've lost, and how silence became their mirror. This silence feels different. It's not always the goodbye that breaks them. Sometimes it's the fact that you didn't even need to say it. This isn't the kind of silence they're used to, not the passive-aggressive kind, not the cold-shoulder, attention-seeking kind. This is different. This silence has a presence. It's not loud, but it's not empty either. It lingers, it grows, it echoes. At first, they probably shrugged it off, told themselves they're just taking space, maybe even laughed about it. They'll be back. But something in their gut said otherwise, because this time, it doesn't feel like distance. It feels like departure, like a door closed quietly in the night. No slam, no warning, just that soft click, and then nothing. And the nothing, it's starting to feel heavy. See, most people are used to silence as a weapon, a cold tactic, a mind game. They use it to punish, to provoke a response. But the silence you're holding right now, it's not a game, it's not revenge, it's self-respect. And that's why it hits different, because they can't argue with it, they can't twist it, they can't decode it. It's too pure, too calm, too grounded. You're not waiting for them to come running back. You're not pretending to move on. You're actually moving, quietly, with intention, with peace. And that stillness, that's what shakes them. Because they expected noise, drama, desperation, but you gave them silence, and silence from someone real is more haunting than any scream. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine being in a room filled with voices, everyone talking, laughing, complaining. You hear one voice that always made you feel calm, stable. It was the one you could count on to bring clarity when the world felt chaotic. And then one day, without explanation, it's just gone, not replaced, not moved, just gone. The room gets louder, but it also gets colder. That's what they feel right now, surrounded by noise, but missing your stillness. And the questions start rolling in. Did they really walk away? Are they done with me? Why does this feel so different from every other time? Because this time, you're not reacting, you're not waiting, you're not even explaining, and that's what's throwing them off. Your silence isn't a pause, it's a decision, and for the first time, they can feel it. They may try to pretend they're unbothered. They might post stories with fake laughter, cryptic quotes, or "look how great I'm doing" selfies. But the truth is, none of it is loud enough to drown out the sound of your absence. Because this silence didn't come with fireworks. It came with finality, with self-awareness, with boundaries. And the scariest part for them, they don't know what's on the other side of it. Because when someone goes quiet to manipulate, you know the cycle. You know they'll eventually return, looking for attention. But when someone goes quiet to protect themselves, there's no telling if they'll ever come back. That unpredictability, that's not power, that's presence. And that's why they're spiraling. You're no longer the person they could predict. You're no longer orbiting their mood swings, their hot and cold energy. You've become the storm they never saw coming, the kind that doesn't destroy, but clears everything in its path. Their expectations, their control, their comfort, all of it, gone. And here's what's wild. Your silence is now doing all the talking. It's saying everything your past words couldn't, because no explanation, no apology, no "let's talk" text could ever hit as hard as the fact that you just stopped showing up. And they feel it in their chest, in their scrolling, in the gap between their notifications. They feel it when they check their phone and your name isn't there, when they go to sleep wondering if maybe, just maybe, they messed up something they didn't even know they were holding. But let's make something very clear. You're not being silent because you're heartless. You're being silent because you finally grew a backbone where your emotional exhaustion used to be. You're not withholding love. You're preserving energy. You're not ghosting. You're healing. Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." And you're no longer craving their crumbs. You're no longer starving for their recognition. You've tasted peace, and once you've had that, you don't chase people who only fed your insecurities. Let them sit with it. Let them wrestle with it. Let them try to find your echo in places they once ignored. Because this silence, it's not weak, it's warrior-level clarity. It's the discipline of someone who knows that walking away quietly is often the loudest move you'll ever make. Now write this in the comments right now. My silence has strength. Say it like you mean it. Show them, show yourself, show the world that silence isn't retreat, it's revelation. And stay with me, because the next question creeping into their mind, the one they never expected to ask themselves, cuts even deeper. Maybe I wasn't as important as I thought. And that, my friends, is when the real unraveling begins. Maybe I wasn't as important as I thought. Some people only realize your value when your silence becomes louder than your love. This is the moment where everything starts to crack inside them. At first, they were confident, cocky even, thought they had you figured out. They'll be back. They always check in. They'll reach out eventually. But days pass, and then more. And suddenly, that certainty they once carried like armor starts to feel like a lie they told themselves. Because now, they're sitting in your silence, and it's starting to feel personal. They don't want to admit it, but the question is crawling up their spine, whispering behind every thought, screaming inside every pause. Maybe, I wasn't that important to them after all. And that, my friend, is a different kind of fear. It's not the fear of losing someone, it's the fear that you were never central in their world to begin with, that maybe you were just passing through. A good chapter, not the whole story. And when someone used to your affection, your effort, your emotional consistency, has to face the possibility that they weren't necessary in your life, only included, that's when the ego begins to tremble. Because let's be real, when they thought they were the sun in your sky, they didn't ask whether they were giving enough light back. They just soaked in your warmth, your loyalty, your time. And now that the warmth is gone, they're left standing in emotional winter with no jacket, wondering why it suddenly got so cold. But here's what they never understood while you were giving your all. You weren't attached. You were intentional. You didn't chase because you were desperate. You showed up because you cared. You didn't text first because you were weak. You did it because you respected the connection. But the moment you saw it wasn't mutual, you didn't complain. You didn't argue. You just got quiet. And now that quiet is loud in their soul. Let me show you what's really happening in their mind right now. They're going back through the memories, the conversations, the little things you said, the way you used to light up when talking to them, the support you gave without asking for anything in return. And they're wondering, was I wrong to think they'd always be there? Did I take them for granted? And the truth? Yes, they did. Because most people assume that when someone's consistent, they're permanent. But they forgot one key truth. Your consistency was a choice, not a contract. You never owed them your time. You offered it, freely, until it started costing your peace. That's when you withdrew, not out of punishment, but out of protection. You didn't ghost them. You didn't block them. You didn't play games. You just stopped feeding energy into something that didn't nourish you back. And now, your stillness is haunting them. Not because you disappeared, but because you didn't beg. Let's go deeper. You know why this realization cuts them so deeply? Because it's the first time they're facing the idea that they might not have mattered as much as they thought. And when someone who once made them feel like the center of their world suddenly steps back and says nothing, it forces them to rethink their entire narrative. They thought they had power, control, that they were the emotionally dominant one. But power isn't found in how loudly you speak. It's in how quietly you leave. And you left without fanfare, without warning, without making it a show. Just a quiet withdrawal of your presence, a calm decision. And now, that absence is making them feel something they never expected. Replaceable. But here's the deeper truth they're waking up to. You did value them deeply. You just stopped valuing the version of you that tolerated being taken for granted. And that's the part that stings, because now they know they weren't pushed away. They were quietly let go. And there's no dramatic comeback from that. No big apology speech fixes it, because once a stoic mind makes peace with the silence, it doesn't crave the noise again. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And your thoughts now? They're painted with self-respect, with clarity, with the understanding that love is not about proving, it's about being mutually cherished. You're not playing hard to get. You're just finally refusing to be easy to forget. Now they're sitting in a silence that feels different. It's not passive, it's active. It's full of the things they refused to hear when you were speaking. And what it says is simple. If I wasn't that important to you then, don't expect me to pretend I am now. Now write this in the comments right now. My absence speaks the truth. Say it. Breathe it. Let it ground you. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you no longer fight to be prioritized where you were once only tolerated. And stay with me, because next, we're going to the core of what they fear the most. Did I just lose someone who actually had standards? That realization, That's where their ego starts to crumble for good. Did I just lose someone who actually had standards? They thought you left because you didn't care. What they never saw was the truth. You left because you finally did. This is the final blow, the one they didn't expect to feel. Not now, not like this. See, at first, they thought you were just like the rest. Another person who caught feelings. Another person they could keep half-fed and half-waiting. But now, something heavy is sitting in their chest. A question that wasn't even possible to them before. What if the person I pushed away was the only one who had real standards? And just like that, the game ends. Because they're starting to connect the dots. You didn't leave in chaos. You didn't ghost them out of pettiness. You didn't withdraw to punish them. No, you left in silence, not out of weakness. But because your self-respect finally outgrew their inconsistency. That's not immaturity, that's evolution. And now, while they scroll through your profile pretending they're unbothered, while they post stories to fake their happiness, while they entertain shallow conversations to distract themselves, they're starting to feel it. The difference between being wanted for attention and being wanted with intention. You were the latter, and they let you go. You see, most people have never met someone with standards. They've met people with needs, with insecurities, with attachment issues. But someone who actually values themselves enough to walk away without warning when energy is no longer matched, that's rare, that's unforgettable, that's you. And it's hitting them now. You weren't looking for control, you were looking for respect. You weren't demanding perfection, you were expecting reciprocity, and they couldn't meet that. So they tested your limits, gave less, played cool, assumed you'd stick around regardless. But they forgot one thing. People with standards don't explode, they expire, quietly. No arguments, no warnings, just a shift, a pullback, a redirection. And by the time the other person notices, it's already too late. The window closed. Now they're remembering the way you held conversations with presence, the way you asked the deep questions, the way you remembered details no one else noticed, the way you made them feel grounded in a world full of surface-level attention. And they're realizing something terrifying. They didn't just lose someone who liked them, they lost someone who saw them, and they'll try to replace it. Oh, they'll try. They'll find someone who gives them the same butterflies, someone who floods their inbox, someone who laughs at all the right jokes. But it won't feel the same, because what you offered wasn't performance, it was principle. And that kind of energy, that kind of presence, it doesn't come around twice. Let me be clear, you didn't walk away because you stopped caring. You walked away because you finally started caring about yourself more. That's what shook them. That's what's eating at them now. Not just the silence, not just the absence, but the realization that you had standards, and they failed to meet them. And what they'll feel now isn't regret over losing you. It's shame that they didn't recognize you when they had you. They'll say things like, "You changed." No, you grew. You didn't fight for it. No, you stopped fighting yourself. You gave up too soon. No, you gave too much for too long. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." And that's what you've done. You stopped waiting for people to honor your heart. You started honoring it yourself. That's not giving up, that's growing up. So now, while they sit with the weight of the silence, while they wonder if you still think about them, while they feel the sting of knowing they couldn't meet you at your level, you rise. You rise into someone who no longer flinches when someone pulls away. You rise into someone who sets boundaries not as walls, but as doors with locks. You rise into someone who doesn't need to explain their standards because they live them. And that's the real win here. Not that they miss you, not that they regret it, but that you remembered who you are before they tried to make you forget. So here's what I want you to do right now. Type this in the comments: "I honor my standards." Say it out loud, In your chest, let it hit, let it stay, because that's the difference between being another story in someone's life and becoming the one they never get over. And if this message lit something up in you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment sharing your moment of awakening. When did you realize your peace was too expensive for one-sided love? Because this isn't the end, my friends. This is the beginning of a life where your standards are no longer negotiable, where your silence isn't a threat, it's a throne, where your energy isn't spent, it's chosen. Stay grounded, stay strong, stay stoic.